Welcome to the Pitching Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Flutie Davis, and today we're diving into a topic that's it's critical for any medtech startup. It's really looking to make an impact. So, setting up a smart, sustainable strategy for commercial success. And now, when you're building an innovative project, it's tempting just to jump right in and move fast. But the real key is to move efficiently and make sure those decisions are backed by solid data. So we're lucky enough to have Craig Ingram with us, who is the best bridge auditor, the auditor ever, the audit that's going to actually make you money and maybe make you a unicorn company. But he's got amazing depth of experience and commercial strategy. And we're going to explore some practical ways startups can build a foundation for success. That's one thing we always encourage at PitchSync is companies to engage early before they're putting out the fires. And when you have the right support at the right time, you can make those strategic moves with confidence. So that being said, Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to a robust and fruitful conversation that your listeners can actually take away and use.
Yeah.
3 minutes after we're done.
Well, I think so. If it's anything like the calls that we've had, one, everyone's going to be laughing. I know I've been laughing and ear to ear, but it's filled with amazing information. And honestly, what you've taught us in just a few calls, I'm excited for our listeners and hopefully clients and startups to hear this as well. So
Yeah,
let's
let's add
really
some
dive.
value for
Yeah, I
sure.
love that. Let's dive into something that you've taught me, and it's really the importance of data-driven efficiency and not really moving fast, but using data to identify, how to actually navigate the challenges. So when you're talking about setting up commercial strategy, there's also, often I feel like you've got to move really fast. There's a rush to go quickly. Let's talk about really the importance of gathering the right data before going fast.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, um, using solid source-based data whenever possible is going to give you the best foundation for you to launch off of. And I'm not talking product launch. I'm talking launching a decision, launching an action, launching a tactical framework, launching a strategic framework, right? I mean, any type of moving one foot forward is another launch, right? And
Yeah.
so having that data is really what sets you up so that you can have the least amount of cracks in your foundation. What I always tell people is that, when you look at the 10 components of commercialization, the very first component of commercialization is market research. The vast majority of market research for startup companies, whether they're in an early stage, a pre-seed or seed situation, or if it's more of a later stage startup where they're in Series A, Series B, Series C, they need to constantly be gathering the data of market research to make sure that their product development, the product that they developed, is exactly what the market or their target market customers will buy. Because if not, then they're not going to be truly financially successful in business. And one of the words that I actually am not a fan of is the word successful, because it has such a broad range of definitions for so many different people. But in business, we need to get back to the point where successfulness in business is being profitable as soon as humanly possible.
I think people overlook that too. They think you need to go raise a ton of money. But what does that do? That pushes that profitability line really down the way. And you've got to go and just create this crazy strategy and then go at lightning speed, which we're learning can be, the opposite of what you really need to do. Learn to run lean, learn to
Yeah.
engage early, right?
Yeah. Use the least amount of borrowed money as possible.
So I've got a question for you then. There's companies out there, specifically like MedTech focused, development, that you've got the LSIs, the, Rep Signals, Acuity, these really great companies.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to, we've bootstrapped. And so when you're trying to look at data, it is so expensive. So how, what's that data looking like? If I'm an early stage founder, I'm trying to do my market research. What's the best thing to do when I can't afford an LSI or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is two things. either internet-based, search engine-based data, right? And look at the sources, look at the information and the sources and where that data is coming from is critical. And number two, do your own research by talking to potential end user, the people that would be your customers that would be willing to pay for the product or service that the company that you're creating will offer. I mean, that's
That's
it.
exciting. Yeah, I mean that second option to me is one. I just love talking to everybody. Two, I mean you're getting feedback from a horse's mouth directly from where it needs to be, and now you're essentially looking down the road of, hey, do I have a potential client when this is going, and someone that's willing and wanting us to be successful. So
Yeah. The biggest risk in that is having people tell you what you want to hear. We can
yeah,
find those people all day long. We need to tell people what we don't want to hear. And we need to have the confidence in our skill sets and abilities to not be offended when somebody tells us that what we have isn't what is either A, wanted, or B, needed, or C, maybe a potential both. At the end of the day, at least I can only speak for me. I've been in a company where they didn't like hearing what came out of my mouth. Well, now that it's been almost 2 years later, that company is struggling to the point where they're probably going to get sold at a fire sale
oh, that's
because
terrible.
they're doing the common thing. Well, as Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and people say, don't be like the Joneses because the Joneses are broke, right? That's why you don't want to keep up with the Joneses because they're broke,
Yeah,
right? I always say to people, uncommon companies do uncommon decisions that lead to uncommon strategies that result in uncommon tactics that result in uncommon outcomes. So, in
go against
order
the
to
grain.
be uncommon, you have to look at 99% of what corporate America is doing. And most of the time, you're going to have to do the complete antithesis of that. And that comes from billionaires like Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? JT Fox, uh, Fred Fishback. Like these are people who, when you can write a check for 4, 5, 600 million and the dang thing doesn't bounce, and they have multiple companies in multiple industries, they clearly understand business. That's who you want to listen to, not some person with an MBA that honestly hasn't done it. Or even if they have, did they do it because they had a big company supporting them? Or did they do it on their own when they had to bootstrap it? Because I'll be honest with you, I would rather listen to the people who've had to do it on their own than bootstrap it because they didn't have the big company that would open doors because of their branding and people would meet with them.
Also, and we've interviewed a bunch of people that have, and some good friends have, and there is a fire that is lit inside of you, and you've got to do it yourself, and you've got to learn, and just also go talk to people too, because people are willing to help, and you've got to do so. But man, is it exciting when you're
It is.
scared to death of
Yeah.
what's next and failure. But the best part of the thing I've learned more about anything is, you said it earlier, you don't want the yes people anymore. You want the person that's going to tell you no, and this is why, because you're going to learn so much more from them.
Yeah, you're gonna be able to make more money in the long run because that's what business is
Yeah.
about. If you're not making money, then why are we in business? Why are we in commerce? Right? Why? And so, I got my start. I started my own medical distribution company when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore in college, and then I went to work for J&J. I'm glad I went to work for J&J. I got to work in two different startups at J&J, and then I got to go to venture capital based startups, and done that ever since. I don't look at my J&J background as a bad thing. I look at it as a phenomenal thing. But I will tell you, the vast majority of people that come from a large multinational conglomerate will struggle in a mid-stage or startup company because you are exposed for the results, either positive or negative, right? Or both, right? You're exposed. And when you're exposed, you have to be one of those type of people that is A, willing to get their teeth kicked in, you know, and B, be willing to be vulnerable, like you said, a few minutes ago, to be exposed. I'm totally okay with that. Right. But again, I know that most people aren't, and that's okay as well. But, as you talked about failure a second ago, if you were to look on social media, nobody fails. Everybody's a millionaire, right? It's just absolute nonsense. It's fugazi. And yet, uh, dude, I've failed a ton, but I've also succeeded a ton. And I've got the results to prove it, and it's interesting. One of my business coaches has had he's working on his third, but he's had $1 billion exits. He's had two of them. He's now working on his third, and it's probably going to happen sometime in February or March, to be really honest with you. And I bring that up because he exposed me in what I thought wasn't real information. We're talking data. If you look at the SBA.gov, there's 32.8 million companies that have 500 or less employees. This includes MedTech, health tech, digital, anything within the healthcare technology environment. But it also includes many other industries as well, and segments of many other industries. But when you look at the data from the SBA.gov, 32.8 million companies with 500 or less employees, 3.6% of companies never achieve $1 million in revenue in a fiscal year. That's hard data.
Yeah, that's sad to hear. I mean, so many people trying to
Out
create.
of that, yeah, out of that 6.6% of companies that do make $1 million in revenue or more a year with 500 or less employees in that category, only 4% of that 6.6% ever make 10 million in a fiscal year, in a 12-month period. So when I see on LinkedIn, for this position, this person must have $50 million of responsibility, I laugh. The private equity managing partners of these big private equity firms that have multiple billions of companies under them, dollars worth of companies in their portfolio, they laugh because it's not the norm. It's uncommon. If you're a company that has 500 or less employees and you hit $1 million in revenue, you're part of the 6.6%.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of thinking back on one of my other jobs, and it was one of the largest orthopedic companies, and it was a product that we launched, and it was a milestone and a record. We hit $1 million a month in sales, but that was
Oh my
with
gosh, let alone in a
hundred,
month?
hundreds of reps. It's a if imagine trying to do that. It's impossible without that infrastructure in place. That being said, you kind of talk about these large companies. You're J&J. I failed at my job as a marketing person at the Striker because it wasn't fit for me, but it was the best job I've ever had because I learned more than anything about what it took to actually run your own little portfolio, which was close to that money that you just mentioned. But then you look into a startup, and that's where I've loved. That's where I've excelled. So you said those people that aren't, they've got that game plan there. It doesn't transfer over. You cannot hide at a startup. It's
You
yours
can't.
to own. Yeah, it is yours to own. You go after it. It's your job. Light a fire under your butt and get moving.
It's so true. I'm speaking next week, right, at Mega Success with JT Fox and some celebrities and some billionaires. And my speech on stage is going to be, what is the kryptonite in your business? Right? And in each one of the 10 components of commercialization, when I do an assessment or an audit of each one of those 10 components, I don't have to be an expert, or my team doesn't have to be an expert in production or manufacturing, right? Or even product development. But we know the questions to ask and look for to find the deficiencies and gaps, which is what we call, kryptonite, because the kryptonite in the business will take down the business and they will end up shutting their doors. And there'll be another statistic, right? I mean, again, SBA.gov, 500 employees or less in a company out of the 32.8 million companies, within 5 years, 50 to 55% of companies will literally shut their door in 60 months because they don't have a high level of growth with customer adoption, right? And that's all part of the commercialization. Something like 72 to 77% of companies in our space within healthcare technology, if you're a company that's selling into hospitals, surgery centers, physician clinics, you know, skilled nursing facilities, rehab facilities, anywhere basically a patient treatment center is, 72 to 77% of companies will shut their door within 8 to 10 years. Those statistics are not good. And yet everybody's like, yeah, but that's just normal. Well, then stop being normal.
Yeah. 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 I
You,
mean, go
you can
against
tell
the,
I'm pretty obsessed on this because I'm just sick and tired of seeing people do the same commercial strategy, the same commercial tactics, the same commercialization activities, and yet they expect different results. I mean, guys, wake up. The clue phone is ringing. Pick up the clue phone.
so you talked about that, and we talked about trying to go against the grain a little bit, and these stats are sad. So we want to now provide our listeners, these startups, anyone in the industry, a little bit of information essentially of how to not be one of the statistics, how to go against the grains. And you said something that scares a lot of people. And you said the word,
What did I
yeah,
say?
you said the word audit, but your audit is the best kind you want. When someone says, oh, I'm getting audited by Craig, if I'm hearing that, that's the best thing that's happening for my company because now you're going against the grain and you're doing what everybody else isn't doing. And you're now looking at that data of how do we push this company forward. So
Oh my
let's talk
gosh,
about,
my
yeah,
audits are going to make them money.
yeah,
Literally, they're going to put money in their bank account.
yeah. And that's what we want to do. We want those stats to go. We want to change those stats. We want you to work differently. So let's talk about that audit. There's 10 steps to the commercialization plan. Just give us a high level overview of what that audit actually looks like. You've got to
Yeah,
open up
so
your IRS records.
yeah, it's kind of funny, right? I've got a couple monitors in front of me and I'm okay because I can't memorize everything, right? And so, and I'm going to be publishing a book called The Bridge Strategy Blueprint, right? Or the Bridge Blueprint Strategy. I'm still working on kind of the title. I don't have to have that done right away because we're almost ready to publish it, but I still got a few things I'm tweaking. It really comes down to bridging the gap, right? If you look on my LinkedIn and on my banner, I've got a bridge and it's got one side ineffective and it's got the other side effective. Well, but there's a big gap in the middle. So my job or our job with a few members of my team that are part of my organization at International Commercialization Growth Partners is to bridge the gap from ineffective to effective, right? One of the ways to do that is by putting in place the assessment or audit, the bridge strategy audit, to go through each one of the 10 components of commercialization to see where the kryptonite is. So let's name the 10 components first of all. This is not taught in MBA programs, right? This is not taught in undergrad. This isn't taught as a marketing manager. This isn't taught as a VP of sales because they're not teaching their people this. This is really put together by some of the people that I've actually been coached by within multiple industries that have started and owned multiple companies. So number one, here are the 10 components of commercialization. Number one, market research. The vast majority of market research is incomplete and inadequate, right? Number two, product development. If you're not, and I do them in this order because there's a methodology to it. Number two is product development. If you're developing a product based upon incomplete and inadequate market research, you are not going to have high levels of customer adoption. You're just not. The third is regulatory affairs. So in our industry specifically, and in the gas and oil industry and food industry and all this, right? There's regulatory. And so we need to make sure that the market research that develops the right product, make sure gets the right regulatory approval so it can go into step number 4, which is production. So you got market research, product development, regulatory affairs, and then the fourth one is production. Within production is obviously manufacturing, but it's still part of the commercialization umbrella because it's got to be produced in the right way and in the most cost-effective manner that doesn't damage the quality.
Yeah.
And so then you start producing the product, and then you go to commercialization component number 5, which is marketing. Within marketing, you've got branding and you've got public relations. Marketing boiled down is nothing more than letting your target market and letting the world know that you have a product or service that you're providing to solve problems, to create vanity, or to make life less complicated, right? Then when you market and let everybody know what you have, what it does, why they should own it, then you got to have salespeople. Well, this sales strategy or selling is the 6th component of the 10 components of commercialization. Here's the biggest frustration I have with selling. And this comes from, I started literally selling stuff when I was 12 years old in my dad's paint store. The vast majority of salespeople absolutely do not know how to sell.
I can
And
attest to that. Yeah. I had no
can
idea what I was
prove
doing.
that over and over and over and over again. They don't know how to sell. The vast majority of managers that are managing teams of people don't know how to coach because they don't know how to sell. And so they're creating buyer's resistance just based on the words and phraseology and the tonality that they're using when they approach a potential prospect. People say, yeah, but relationship selling is exactly what we need. Okay. And how many people that brag about how many relationships they have in their specific sector of the industry, how many of them are hitting President's Club year after year after year after year after year after year? It's less than 2%. It's horrible. So if relationship selling is so effective, why isn't everybody with the relationships having the most sales? I'm
Yeah.
going against the grain here. This is not popular
Yeah.
at all.
I'm imagining sitting at an NSM and just listening to rep. Well, is this relationship? You're like, you know what? No, it wasn't. It was the tactics you put behind it. It was the data you put behind it. And then execution.
Yeah, I say to people all the time, I was talking to I'm going to pick on orthopedics for a second because I can. And I was talking to a VP of sales. This was about 6 years ago. And I'll never forget this conversation. He said, Craig, you know what? We need somebody with spine background. Actually, it was longer than that. It was back in 2011. Gosh dang. Tells you how time flies. 2011. He said, Craig, you know what? You clearly know how to sell in the MedTech industry, but we need somebody with spine experience. And I said, why? Well, we need people with those relationships. And I said, so how many people have you hired in the last 12 months? No, in the last 24 months with a ton of relationships, and they are either on track or have been on track, and they fulfilled the top 10% in your company? I asked him that question, and he said, I think you and I have different philosophies in selling. He goes, I think we're done. I checkmated him. Did I want to checkmate him? I didn't purposely checkmate him, but don't tell me that you need to have spine background to sell spine. You need to master the art of selling. You do need to know how the hospital. You do need to know how to approach the surgeon. You do need to understand the value analysis committees, right? There's all these things you do absolutely have to know, right? But I bet you if I was to hire, let's just say they have 50 sales reps. If I was to hire 10 of them that did not have spine experience, but but that have mastered the art of selling, I guarantee you 100% of the time, those 10 reps would outperform the other 50 because they've mastered the art of selling. They haven't mastered the spine.
Yeah. And I would say debatably they're more hungry to prove themselves in that space.
Right? Well, but even if they're not hungry, if they don't have to have the background or the relationships in order to make new converts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, and anyway, so that's number 6, sales strategy. Number 7 is financing and budgeting. And people say, well, Craig, how is that part of, the umbrella of commercialization? Well, you got to be able to finance all the things previous that we've talked about: market research, product development, regulatory affairs, production, marketing, branding, PR, and sales strategy. And you got to be able to do the activities and the necessary work with the money that you have or the money that you've allocated for that specific department or budget for that sector, right, within your company. So financing budgeting is number 7 out of the 10 components. 8 is partnerships and alliances, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. There's not a lot to go into that. At the end of the day, put yourself in partnerships and alliances with either other companies, whether they're profit, non-for-profit, right? Maybe certain para hospital based support groups, things like that, right? If you're selling an OBGYN product that is for ovarian cancer, well, guess what? Maybe you want to start pitching and presenting and letting people know in an ovarian cancer support national support group or something like that, there's new alternative technology out there for ovarian cancer or something, right? I'm just making that up, but that's an example of what you'd want to do. So partnerships and alliances, that's number 8 out of the 10 components of commercialization. Number 9 is post-sale customer support and services, right? One of the worst things a company can do is have really, really piss poor post-sale customer service and support. And people say all the time, the sale starts after the sale. Well, it really does, because a customer buys once, but a client buys over and over and over again. So your job is to turn a prospect into a customer and then turn a customer into a long-term lifetime client. The only way to do that is by providing phenomenal customer support. Case in point, this is what happened today. I have a Sonicare toothbrush. I'm going to give Philips a plug here because this was amazing. I have a Sonicare toothbrush. I've had it for 4 years. It broke yesterday. So I've been manually brushing my teeth for the last, almost 36 hours. I called Philips today and I said, this is my 3rd Philips Sonicare toothbrush in almost 15, 16 years, because I register them every time. I said, it broke. I don't know if it's under warranty or not, but I said, I've literally used Sonicare for almost 15, 16 years now. So the guy took my name and, details and everything. He said, sir, you've registered 3 toothbrushes since 2006. He said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you a brand new one for free.
That's great. That's customer service. That's,
Oh
again,
my gosh.
building a
Because you know what? We're still going to get the business because I still have to buy a friggin' replacement head every 2 months.
Yeah, that's building clients. That's not building a customer.
It's building clients. I will be a Sonicare customer for life, because now I don't have to spend another $100 on a handle. So guess what? The lifetime value of me and my family is probably, again, I'm just throwing money. I'm just throwing out I'm just throwing numbers out. My family's probably going to be a $25,000 to $40,000 client for life.
Yeah, and it all comes down to being able to actually, again, start at the sale, after the sale, being able to provide good service.
I love giving plugs like that, because guess what? They get commercialization. At least they get one component of it. They get number 9 at least, right?
Yeah.
But I bet you they get a lot of the other ones too. And then the last one, the 10th component of commercialization is post-market analysis. Are we providing what the current customers want? Are there new technologies? Are there new ways of doing things? Are there next generation products and services that we can offer, right? Let's look back at what we're doing to the other 9 components, and let's see what we can do more effectively and maybe a little faster. And I say that cautiously, right? Because unless you're in trauma or unless you're in motorsports, fastness is your enemy, because it creates hastiness. At the end of the day, in order for me and and the company that I've built here and building, bridging that gap, you got to have 10 support beams. These are the 10 support beams of commercialization that nobody really has put together. They think commercialization is marketing and selling. Well, that's only 2 of the 10 components. What about the others? And going back to marketing, for example, I see so many people in marketing positions, and yet I say to them, how are you being the neon green fish in a silverfish lake? Because you can be in an ocean of sameness or a lake of sameness.
Yeah.
But what are you doing to be the neon green fish in a world of silverfish?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we're doing this, or whatever. Right. I'm not going to say what I'm thinking will give away something. And I can't do
Yeah.
that for another company. But I'm like, you shouldn't be making $260,000 a year being the VP of marketing because you're not very good.
I
You're
think,
you're 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 just blending in with everybody else. You're not being the neon green fish.
yeah. And marketing is a dynamic thought process. You have two clients in marketing, especially in MedTech. You have your sales reps, then you have the providers. And your message is very different to both, but you have to make them sync. And it's a lot of marketers in MedTech do not realize that. And it is not a
No,
dynamic
they
thought
don't.
process for them.
And you look at the C-suite and they're like, oh, we're going to hire these people because they've got 15 years of marketing. Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're good,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
What programs have you put in place? Talk to me
Same
about
with
the
sales rep.
analytics. Yeah.
Well, this rep has got 9 years of endovascular experience, or this rep has you know
Yeah.
15 years of aesthetics experience. Well, that's great. Are they any good?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they got relationships. Excellent. How many devices have they sold in the first 6 months?
Yeah. It's
But they got
frustrating.
all these relationships.
But
People get
have they
people
transferred
get angry
over?
with me.
Yeah.
No,
I've worked for some
because
organizations that,
it's not mastering the art of marketing. It's not mastering the art of selling. It's not mastering the art of regulatory, right? Or whatever the case may be, right? Of the 10 components.
yeah.
So I
And
know
their
people are going to
arts.
listen to this podcast and they're going to get freaking feisty. They're going to get mad
Yeah.
at me.
Good.
Good. Get mad at
Good.
me. Let's
Yeah.
talk.
And this is an art. It is truly an art. It is not
It
just a
is.
job. It is an art. If you want to be really damn good at your job, and we talked about, not being the word successful, but if you want to excel in your career, you have to upset some people and go against the grain and set it yourself aside. And it is an art to do so. It is a full blown commitment.
People say all the time to some of the people I mentioned earlier on this podcast. I mean, I was just listening to a TikTok last night. I couldn't fall asleep because I just literally got back from Europe
Hmm.
over the last 8 days, actually 7 days or whatever. Like last Tuesday on election night, I was flying out to Europe
Yeah.
and to do a talk at a MedTech company at a MedTech conference. And so I was just listening the other night because I couldn't sleep, and I was watching TikTok, and Gary Vaynerchuk was like, "Why do you think 8 and 9 and 10 figure literal liquid net worth entrepreneurs don't fit in? Because in order to become an 8, 9, or 10 figure liquid net worth entrepreneur, you can't do what everybody else does.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
think like them. You can't talk like them. You can't walk like them. You can't make decisions like them. You have to be uncommon. Most people don't want to be uncommon. And in many situations, if you go into a company, they want you to conform to their ways of doing things. Well, that's fine. It's their sandbox. But when the company is struggling financially, you probably want to do some things different. You probably, because there's no such thing. I heard somebody say the other day, well, they're looking for more of a safe hire. Okay, who's a safe hire?
Why?
Somebody that gives you blind obedience? You don't want that because they don't know how to critically think.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
had one person say on LinkedIn a few months ago, they're like, well, Craig, I'm not trying to be an 8 or 9 figure person. Okay, well, that's fine. You don't have to try to be an 8 or 9 figure person. But at the end of the day, the money actually comes after you do uncommon things.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take it a step in another direction. I'm going to ask, what are you creating right now? You are a medtech founder. You don't want to be these Gary V's or anything. What are you creating? You're creating disruptive technology. You're going against the grain. So inherently, what you are doing needs that mindset, and you need to
Right,
push that way.
right.
It's yeah. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
right on. You're absolutely right. Like, it's so funny because like what I provide is a service, right? What my company provides as a service, what my team members provide is the components to provide that service, right? And so we're working with software companies, medical devices, both interventional, surgical, and diagnostic, right? Biotech companies. I'm even working right now with a kind of half pharmaceutical, half biotech company for a product that actually works for oral mucositis, and I'm trying to take that product to the Middle East since I've been doing a lot of work, the last few years in the Middle East, and now I'm going to be taking it probably to Malta and Italy, and at the end of the day, it's about bringing real tangible value to an organization that wants to do the uncommon thing. And when it comes to commercialization, how do you stand out from all the noise that is just what I would consider, clanging cymbals and, somebody grabbing a pot and a pan and just smacking it with a wooden spoon, and that's the noise in our industry. And how do you escape from that? It's by doing the uncommon decisions that lead to uncommon strategies, that lead to uncommon
Yeah.
tactics, that lead to uncommon outcomes. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
But here's an interesting take here because you have to do that to stand apart. But there is this playbook that people think there needs to be followed. You're developing a product, you're in orthopedics, you're developing a product. Okay, well, now I need to go to Academy. I need to go to AUKUS. I need to go AR. I have to spend this much on a booth. Show me the returns. I don't think it's there. And
It's not.
but then here comes the other part of it is there you almost need to be there for them to feel like you're relevant. And so there you've got to dance around this. Well, how do I do so? And that's where I think your team provides so much value because you can help think outside of the box on that. And then what
No doubt
cost
about
effective.
it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. I'm working with a company right now in Germany, and they want to position themselves in the US, and they paid us to do a commercialization plan. 56 pages over 33 hours is what we put together for them. And it was not off of a template,
Yeah.
right? I could think of another couple companies that would do that, but they would be charging them $35,000 for it. And it'd probably be, 10 pages. And it would give a lot of what I would consider generic information. And when we do a commercialization plan for a company, no two commercialization plans are alike. But 100% of the time, the commercialization plan, no matter how many pages it is, whether it's 40 pages or 56 pages like this one is, it will fit within their business plan. And the radical bespoke or customization of it, where no two commercialization plans are going to be the same, that's what brings the personal value. I think that's what phenomenal what you guys are doing at
Yeah.
PitchSync, right? Because no two things are identical. There'll be a consistent thread of sameness from sector to sector to sector, or industry to industry to industry, right? And what I mean by industry to industry is the pharmaceutical industry really is different than the MedTech industry, right? Medical device industry.
Night and
However,
day.
they're both under healthcare technology or the healthcare field, right? Or digital health even. But even though there's going to be some radical differences, there's going to be a thread of sameness. So you take the thread of sameness and you build off of it. And that's why no two things that you're doing at PitchSync or no two things that I'm doing here at International Commercialization Growth Partners are ever going to be the same from company to company to company or sector to sector to sector.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the way I would love what you said. The way that our company was built, the methods we were built on, two-sided marketplaces are not new. They are an extremely effective program. If we look at the basic versions of it every day, Uber, you have supply and you have demand. You have someone that needs to find a service and you have someone that needs, it's someone that needs to find the client side, the demand side of it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. You said something funny the other day. We had a call on there, and it was kind of back and forth on this one. the only
What did I
fans,
say?
the only fans of MedTech.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, like there is a need for people to be able to hire and find the best of the best, the differentiators like yourself that are on our platform, and that's what we want to do. We're bridging that gap as well, and I want to bridge the gap for people. I am really passionate about this one. And that's why, we're doing it is because I couldn't stop thinking about it. I really couldn't. Quit my job, left, built this out. But we are helping these companies find companies, people like yourself to be able to bring their products, their concepts from that napkin sketch, or we're going against the grain. I need those people. And that's what I want to do is introduce them to you and push this forward.
Yeah.
We're
No,
Uberizing,
that's awesome.
yeah, Uberizing the industry essentially, if you will, from a supply and demand side. So it's
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt people in my view, every single person in the medical device industry, whether they've got a diagnostic based technology, an interventional based technology, right? Or slash surgical, needs to be on pitch sync, right? I'm not just saying that. Like they need to be on it, period. Just like every single startup, whether they're in pre-seed, seed, series A, B, or C, needs to have a commercialization plan, right? Absolutely. Now, the further along they go with the venture capital or investments that come into the company to fund their activities, right? They don't need to go to full-time people right away. They can use fractional people. That's another thing we provide, right? So besides putting together a commercialization plan, they can use a fractional based leadership 2, 4, 6, 8 days a month, save hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year, if not potentially 2 to 4 mil, and get the same result until they start getting monthly revenue at a point where it's going to A, get them profitable, keep them profitable. And as they organically gain more customer adoption, then they can put more full-time people in place. I love what Adam Coffey says, and I've met with this guy multiple times over the last few years. This is a guy who's got two $1 billion exits under his belt. He's built like 59 companies, mergers, acquisitions, all that type of stuff. And he's on his third potential $1 billion exit. He said, if it doesn't work small, it won't work big, no matter how much investments money comes in. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to change in our industry is let's dial the company in small. Let's get your company as profitable as it can be while it's small. Because what gets you from 0 to 100,000 in a year is not going to get you from 100,000 to 1 million in a year. You got to do a complete different mind shift and activity shift and strategy and tactical shift. And then what gets you from 1 million to 10 million
completely different.
wasn't what got you from 100,000 to the million.
Yeah.
And then from 10 million to 100 million isn't what got you from 1 million to 10 million, right? You have to think completely uncommon, and you have to make uncommon decisions that lead to uncommon strategies, that lead to uncommon tactics, that lead to uncommon outcomes. I say that over and over and over again, but it's for whatever reason, it's not getting through. When I spoke on this last week at MedTech World Malta, I was inundated with tons of people coming up to me going, I didn't listen to your whole talk, but I listened to you, when I was overlooking at some, over observing some booths and talking to some other people. Do you have a business card? Let's exchange information. I need you to talk to our portfolio companies. And it was a lot of VCs that said, I need you to come into some of our portfolio companies and I need you to literally help them revamp so that they can start getting what you would call high levels of customer adoption. I said, well, what high levels of customer adoption is for one company at where they're at is going to be completely different than another company where they're at, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be this, what defines high levels of commercial adoption. It's going to be different for every single company based upon where they're at in their commercialization process, right? And so I don't know. I probably got off on a rabbit trail there, but it's just really, really important. And I remember a 29-year-old woman who I met in 2020 from Toronto, Canada. Her name is Katie Kay. And I'm going to plug her for a second because she's become a really good friend. This woman is an 8-figure liquid net worth serial entrepreneur at the age of 29.
Impressive.
Yeah, dude, she's amazing. She's super cool too. Not arrogant, just super cool. But I'm telling you, she can write a check for $10 million and it will not bounce, right? She said to me, don't ever apologize for being obsessed with what you do in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Love
Because
that.
I used to be really, really almost embarrassed to be passionate. Because I remember working at other companies, including at J&J, where they would say, Craig, calm down a little bit. Okay. But that's not who I am. I'm obsessed. I'm super passionate. If that offends you, sorry, go be broke with someone else. I don't want you to be broke. You know what I mean? And so when we embrace who we are, we're going to come across the way we're supposed to come across. And if the other people on the other end don't like it, then they're not our people.
I agree.
I'm okay with that.
I am too. I was told one time, don't do what you like or don't do what you're good at. Do what you're extremely passionate about and do what you're very good at and find the both. And if you can combine the both of them, man, you're gonna
100%.
have a blast. And then we kind of go back, I was thinking you said something earlier is what brought you from 0 to 100 and 100 to a million. It's not different. And I cannot stress enough the power for these, the thoughts of early stage companies, early stage founders. Do what does not scale. Personalize absolutely everything if you can. And then you redevelop the plans as you go. But then you have enough data and enough touch points, as well as people want you to do well. So do what doesn't scale. Touch point everybody, talk to everybody, talk to every customer coming through, turn that customer into a client. You talked about that earlier. It's the post sale side of it. Make sure that they are happy and take the data. The data is a trend that you've talked about the entire time. Arming yourself with data. And then if you can do what's not scaling in the beginning, you can find the scalable opportunities as you're growing, and you're growing more, in my eyes at least, you're growing more because people are actually invested in what you're doing because you're invested in their happiness and their successes.
100%. I will tell you, my business coaches over the last few years have literally said to me, and these are people again with multiple businesses in multiple industries. Maybe that's why I'm broke compared to them, right? I can't write a multi-million-dollar check without it bouncing, right? So I need to listen to these people that are my version of VF Hutton, right? They said scaling shouldn't come out of anybody's mouth until they're hitting somewhere around 1 million or more on a monthly basis of revenue. Until then, the word scaling needs to not even be part of your conversation. And yet, what do we see on LinkedIn and Instagram? Scaling your business, scaling this in your business, scaling that in your business. You can just tell that these people are absolutely out of their mind. They have no idea what they're talking about. And honestly, when you lift under the hood, they probably haven't done it.
No, I would, yeah. I caution with all the people that are out there posting some stuff, dig deeper. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's not that with you. There's not that with our company, and that's why I'm excited for us right here.
Yeah, it's definitely not with
yeah,
us.
there's a level of
We'll probably offend people. You know what I mean?
yeah, there's a level of passion, vulnerability, and honestly, just clarity. When you come and talk to either one of our companies, you're going to get the full story right off the get go, and we want to provide
100%.
as much service as possible in the most cost effective manners.
Well, I think that's why honestly, I got to be careful saying the word love. I think that's why I really enjoy and really like working with you and PitchSync, and what we've got, coming down the road
Yeah.
is because we're not here for a money grab. I'm not. People say, well, Craig, what's your company's daily rate to consult with us? It's $2,650 a day.
Did anybody hear that? So
Really?
go strategize with Craig.
Right? Right? Like, I literally had a guy from here in Texas who is the managing partner of a VC. I almost said the name and I don't have permission to say the name. He said, this was just literally last week in Malta. He says, you guys must not be very good. He goes, that's it? And I was like, I almost said his name again. I'm just going to call him Bob.
Yeah.
I was like, Bob, I don't want a startup being in financially struggling. I don't want money to be a barrier for them to either A, get turned around, or B, get the necessary information and commercialization plan. And I don't want money standing in the way of giving them good direction, both strategy, tactical, and implementation. I don't want money standing in the way of them doing something. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what? They need a commercialization plan. Yeah, guess what? I've got 3 people working on it. I've got to charge 15 grand. I do. And let me tell you, the vast majority of it is not profit. I
Yeah.
wish it was.
Yeah.
But again, I'm doing it because I'm sick and tired of seeing a 72 to 77% failure rate. Steve Bell is one of my partners over in Europe. And he's like, Craig, I have to keep the pricing down because we've got too many medtech companies here in Europe that are failing as well. He goes, Craig, it's a worldwide problem of 70 to 75% failure rate, at 7 to 10 years,
Yeah.
and if not sooner.
It's more than a problem. It's a crisis at this point. Let's sound the
It,
alarms.
it
Let's
is. It
sound the
is
alarms.
absolutely a crisis,
Yeah.
and I think it's because. And again, I can't think of anybody specifically, but I do think there's just a lot of money grabbers out there trying to just make a ton of money and just giving garbage information to people instead of saying, here is what you need to do in order for one, get your target market to be attracted to your offering. Number two, get them to understand that you're there to provide, if it's a service that's going to amount to something, or B, if it's a product you're trying to offer, that the product is actually going to do something for you, right? And that's obviously the customer, the prospect has to use discernment in that, right? And number three, the salespeople at the end of the day are doing nothing more than demonstrating what the product can do for them. So it's an attraction, it's an awareness, and it's an acquisition for a customer acquiring the product or service because of the attraction, of the awareness, and of the salespeople.
You've given us so much information. We've ranted, we've gone all over the place. I loved it. But if we can leave the audience with one final piece, if it's whether that's the mental resilience to continue the course while you are going through this really frustrating and really challenging execution of a strategy, what do you think that like the mental piece of advice that you can give someone? I know because it's hard. I deal with it daily.
All the things that we have to do in business on a daily basis, be aware that 90% or 9 activities out of 10 you're going to hate. That's okay. And when I first heard that from a very wealthy entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, he's built 34 companies from scratch. Yeah, 33 or 34. He said the vast majority throughout your day is going to suck. He goes, you know what keeps you going? The one or two things in the day that you go, this is exactly why I'm doing this. But the vast majority of it, you're not going to want to do. So it really is having that expectation that the majority of activities that you and I have to do on a daily basis sucks. I'm just going to say it straight up.
It does.
The vast majority of stuff we have to do in business, I don't want to do. But then when I found that the majority of super, super, super successful business owners have that same mindset, I was like, well, if they have that mindset, perfect. I align with what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I have to stop with the nonsense of going, do what you just love.
Yeah.
Well, if I only did what I'd love, I wouldn't be working. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't. I'd be racing road courses and oval courses doing NASCAR.
Yeah.
But guess what? That takes millions of dollars. I don't have millions of dollars in disposable, right? So I can't do that. And at the end of the day, so I've got to be okay being okay, knowing that 8 to 9 things out of 10 that I do in a day, I'm not going to want to do them, but I have to do them in order to get the outcome that I want.
Yeah. So that's what it is. Persevere through all of the stuff that you have to do, the administrative stuff, the things we don't like doing. Maybe if you're a technical founder, you don't like selling. If you're a non-technical founder, you don't like the technical sides. But everybody's going through the same thing, and push through and be persistent on that. I can't express enough that you also don't have to do this alone. People like Craig, people like myself, Pitchink, we have other guests that we've talked about. We're all here together on this. And I promise you, this network that we've built in Pitchink, everybody has that same passion. or else they're not on the platform.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And like I said earlier, if you're a founder or you're CEO or you're in a C-suite of a startup company, again, whatever stage that startup company is in, superly well funded, not well funded, moderately funded, whatever, use discernment, and you can figure out really quickly who's there just to take the money from you or who's there to really lock arms with you and build that thing together.
Yeah. Yeah, I know this network we built is, you are, I am, it's exciting. And again, if you are looking for that community side, we're here for that as well. And I know, Craig, you and I have some exciting stuff coming on our community platform, Hive, and we'll tell you guys more about that at a later time. But
yeah, I'm excited about that because I'm still learning about it. And so,
yeah,
I'm a kindergartner when it comes to that, right?
yeah,
So I'm okay with that. I'm
well,
okay admitting that, right?
yeah.
When it comes to commercialization, I'm not a kindergartner, right? I'm definitely PhD level without a PhD because I
Yeah.
don't need to have that.
Well,
That
you do that.
But at the end of the day, you guys
Yeah.
are doing some absolutely fantastic work, and I don't care. Like I said, I don't care if, and you're not paying me to say this, if you're a med tech or health tech founder, whether it's software, whether it's medical device, whether it's surgical, interventional, and diagnostic, if they're not on pitch deck,
PitchSync.
well, guess what? People thought Amazon was a joke back in 1996 when they started.
Yeah. Yeah. PitchSync. Yeah, it's I appreciate that. And honestly, we built that we want everybody here in every stage and feel like this is their home where they can come expand their teams in the best way possible with the best people. So I appreciate that. And then the other platform, Hive, for those who aren't familiar, imagine your Slack team, your Slack channel, met LinkedIn, and put some AI power behind it without any of that spam stuff on there. This is where you come and you can be vulnerable. Leave the egos at the door. Come grow with us. We really want to. So, Craig, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Fun. As you can tell, I'm a crazy guy, but at the end of the day, people will get profitable and they'll make a lot of money when they team up with us and they team up with you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And you provide a ton of great knowledge and resources today for, I feel like, our founders, our listeners to be able to be out there and be more productive hopefully because listen to this. So everyone, thank you so much. And please go ahead and follow us and share this so we can spread the word of what we're all building out here together. Thank you, everyone.